All right, we're going to get started this evening. Again, my name is Attorney Joel Moore. I want to greet you. Thank you very much for joining us. Tonight is our first of several Ask an Attorney Roundtable series that I'll be hosting over the next couple of months. I want to thank in particular our sponsor, Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, Rho Lambda chapter, for providing us with our Zoom technology this evening and also supporting us in terms of the logistics of actually hosting this tonight. I also want to send a special thanks to my three panelists who I'm going to introduce: Mr. Christopher Hayes, Mr. D. Arthur Duncan, and Mrs. Marissa Hill. Just a detail, we're going to be discussing some particular legal areas tonight, and I'll get more into that a little bit later on. But I do want to tell you that there's going to be another roundtable on February 11th at 6:30 p.m. and we're going to be covering some other legal topics. I also want to encourage you to be active in the chat room. If you can think of some other areas that you might need to know about in the legal realm, please mention that in the chat room so I can consider it. I can reach out to my attorney network and hopefully provide some attorneys that can speak to the issues that you may have. So again, we're here to service you. We thank our attorneys very much for their time. And so with regard to what's going to go on tonight, the idea behind these roundtables is for some of the attorneys in your community and our community to provide us with some guidance on some issues that we face day in and day out. All right. Now, I've got to give you a disclaimer because I'm an attorney. This is what we do. None of this is binding. We're simply trying to point you in the right direction, try and answer a couple of questions that might pop up and give you some things to think about as you potentially select an attorney and move forward with these things. So please understand that our input is limited to just general advice, and this does not form a binding contract between any of the attorneys who may be speaking and yourselves, all right? We know lawyers can be expensive, and we know lawyers can use these big kind of convoluted words. Here tonight, we're going to try and explain everything in what we call layman's terms or just general terms so that everyone understands. So please don't be bashful. If we do say something or you don't follow exactly what we're saying, please ask us to elaborate. We'd be happy to. Everybody on the panel is very personable, and we'll provide the information that you need. Let me give you some examples with regard to how you should ask about an example. So you can feel free to ask us what a term means. You can feel free to give us your example in what I call general terms. So for example, X took place. What's the first step I should be thinking about to proceed to deal with this issue? Now, I want to point out that we have a criminal attorney with us. We have an attorney that handles matrimonial and family court stuff. Some of these subjects are sensitive subjects, all right? So there are other people on this Zoom. This is being recorded. Please refrain from using specific names, guys. Again, we just want to give you general information. We don't want to put anyone's business out there. This is your business in your respective homes. So when you ask your questions, please be as broad as possible and don't reference particular people, all right? Again, disclaimer, we're just trying to help you out. We are not your attorneys, but we are attorneys in your community, and we are here to help you and give you some guidance. So with that, I have an experienced panel of attorneys, as I've mentioned before. The subject areas that we're going to be covering tonight: criminal law, all right? Some of the things that happen in criminal law, misdemeanors, felonies. Attorney Duncan is very experienced in this area. He's going to be providing you with some thoughts on that. Matrimonial law and family law. Attorney Hill is very experienced in that area. She's going to be providing some feedback on some of the questions that come from that realm. And civil law. Attorney Hayes is also very experienced in that realm. And so if you guys have some things that fall in there, and Mr. Hayes can field those questions, he will do so. Again, if a legal area is not covered tonight, we may be able to cover it in one of these other series that we do. So put it in the chat, say, hey, Joel, we'd love to also hear about this. And we'll see what we can do about getting a panelist on in the future that can field those questions. So with that, I'm going to get into introductions. Again, my name is Attorney Joel Moore. I am an attorney in the Buffalo, New York area. I currently do wills and trusts in the area. I have done municipal law in the past. I have been a housing court prosecutor in the past. I've been a federal prosecutor in the past. And I've also worked for the Buffalo Public Schools District doing education law. So if any of your questions fall in those realms, by all means, shoot it to me. I will attempt to field it if I can. And next up, I'll call Attorney Duncan. If you'd introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your practice.
Good evening, everybody. The Arthur Duncan. I'm currently a criminal defense attorney here in Buffalo. Before I became a criminal defense attorney, I was assistant corporation counsel for the city of Buffalo and I defended the Board of Ed before I resigned over my own criminal defense practice. I'm also licensed in Western New York federal court, and it's good to be here, and I'm looking forward to the questions. Joe, you're muted.
Apologies. Thank you sincerely, Attorney Duncan, for being here tonight. Next up, I am going to ask Attorney Hayes to introduce yourself. Please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your practice.
All right. Hi, my name is Chris Hayes. I am currently counsel for KeyBank. And just so you know, nothing that I say today, any thoughts, opinions, views, and such are not those of KeyBank. They are mine and mine alone. So I'm not here speaking on behalf of KeyBank. Today, I'm just Chris. Okay. Yeah, I work at KeyBank and I handle their technology deals. So anytime they're bringing on a third party to provide mobile apps and things like that, and all that cool technology that we like to use that makes our banking easier, I get involved in that. I've been an in-house attorney for the last 5 or 6 years, which means that I basically work inside of a company and handling similar matters between there, KeyBank, and Delaware North. And for 7 years before that, I did civil litigation, which is basically people suing other people's or businesses for money. So happy to be here with everyone today and happy to answer any questions that I can.
All right. Thank you very much, Attorney Hayes. And last but certainly not least, joining us this evening is Attorney Hill. Attorney Hill, if you would, please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your legal practice.
Hello, everyone. My name is Marissa Hill Washington. I am a matrimonial and family law practitioner, which means I do mostly divorce, custody, child support, all the touchy-feely, ugly stuff that most of you hear about. I also spend a great deal of time representing children in those proceedings, as well as litigants. So I welcome any questions you have, either now or in the future. You can certainly contact my office, and I'm happy to avail myself.
Thank you very much. Now, before we open up the floor and get to your questions, really, audience, you guys are gonna steer a lot of this. You're gonna ask your questions, and we're gonna do our best to answer them. But I wanna talk a little bit before we get started about how to select an attorney, and I'm gonna have all the panelists chime in too. Now, here are the warnings that I want to give you about selecting an attorney. All attorneys, quite honestly, are not the same, all right? Everyone doesn't have the same capability. Everyone doesn't have the same experience. Some of us have practiced in our different legal realms for decades, and some of us have, appeared at very high levels, and then some of us have less experience. All of us typically have a reputation of some sort. All right. So if you ask one attorney, a lot of times they'll know something about another attorney and how that attorney conducts him or herself. Um, you need to do some due diligence before you pick an attorney. The fact that you see an attorney on a lot of commercials or you hear them on the radio does not in and of itself mean that that's an individual that you want to go with. You want to go with someone who has some experience in a particular legal issue or issues that that pertain to you. And you want to ask around a little bit, maybe your friends or someone else who have had an issue like that before you go ahead. And I should mention this: all attorneys do not charge the same amount of money. An attorney that charges a lot does not necessarily mean he or she is the best. The attorney who doesn't charge much, again, may be a wonderfully great attorney. So there's some things that you need to ask, but I'll hand it off to the panel. The Arthur, any thoughts on how to select an attorney?
Well, first of all, I believe that I mean, this is a small legal community, and as you said before, people have reputations. So I mean, just asking around for a particular matter, you'll get some names that has floated to you. And, you know what I mean, I would suggest that you know, what I mean, you meet with those attorneys, not per se just to try to get free legal advice. Some may charge you for an hour for a consultation, some may not. That might be a red flag there. If, you know what I'm saying, if they charge you for an hour of their time, or they may say, well, this where the time that you're paying for that hour will go towards your legal fees if you hire me. I've been in that position that sometimes it seemed like someone may try to take advantage of my legal counsel, and they come meet with me and try to get all this legal advice and then don't hire me. But I mean, that's, you know, I mean, that's part of, I mean, that's what you sign up for as an attorney, whether you want to charge them for a consultation or not. And I believe it's about a vibe too. You know what I mean, speaking with your attorney as a criminal defense attorney, and as someone who's been in a position that had to defend myself in court before, you know what I mean, I look at it from the other person's point of view, and I make sure that, you know, that my client is as comfortable as possible, and that there's no surprises when they come to court. That's one of the things I offer, that, you know what I mean, I'm very, very down to earth person. I don't really even use the legalese that's not necessary. I don't even use them. I mean, some of them I don't even understand. So, I mean, I believe it's just all about, you know, relationships, being comfortable with your attorney, being able to speak your mind and feeling comfortable to be able to ask questions. And with that, I'll pass it off.
Thank you very much. Attorney Hayes, if you would, some thoughts on how to select an attorney.
Yeah, you know, really good thoughts from before. I would say I like to do your due diligence. Look, the internet is out there. There's a lot of information, and I kind of selected attorneys like I'd select any other service provider, right? Like, I'm not a plumber. I don't know a lot about it, but before I call a plumber, I want to get a sense of, you know, what the issue is, kind of what I might be looking at. So, you know, so I know if they come in and they try to sell me, you know, a jillion dollars worth of services, that something just kind of doesn't make sense there, right? So I want to do my own, just poking around to just kind of get a little familiar with whatever the issue is, just so, you know, that I'm not kind of at someone's mercy, who might be a lot more knowledgeable than me on a subject, right? I want to know, and I also want to be able to say, hey, you know, if they're recognizing certain buzzwords, right? It's the this, it's the that. I'm like, okay, I've seen that, I'm familiar with that. That, you know, that kind of stuff makes sense. And another thing I'll say is just responsiveness. You know, they say a lot of times the best ability is availability, right? So you can be a great attorney, but if I can't get you to return my calls or pay attention to my matter, then that's just, I'm not interested in having you be my attorney. So, and you can get a pretty good sense of that, pretty early on, right? I mean, when you call early on, right? Are you talking to the person? And if you don't talk to the person, do they call you back? How long does it take? When they do call you back, are they rushing you off the phone? Just, and I think that, gets to the Arthur's point, it kind of builds on the vibe, right? I want a vibe that, my matter is important to you and you're going to be there when I need you.
Mhm. Thank you very much. Attorney Hill, again, last but not least, do you have any thoughts with regard to selecting an attorney?
Sure. With respect to my field of law, I know that there's a lot of people out there. The best thing you can do is probably do word of mouth, find out who your friends and family may have used that they're happy with. I would also recommend shopping around. Your family is a very intimate and personal part of you. Just because an attorney is the best attorney, quote unquote, according to someone else, does not mean they're the best fit for you. You need to make sure you feel comfortable. That the Arthur was getting to that. Last but not least, I would just say in asking your friends, keep in mind that some of the people who I regard very highly and I consider to be some of the best in the business, they don't have the big flashy websites. They don't have necessarily an internet presence. I have one individual that I respect very highly who does not have any sort of online presence except for like a Google. If you Google them, it tells you their office location, and they are turning business away left and right because they are excellent. So I would encourage you to at least contact 3 different attorneys and try to get a vibe from them, see how you mesh, find out about the billing, and just what your comfort level is. Just a tip, if you start by asking about, money is important, but if you start by asking how much it's going to cost, what's free, what's not, at least for me, that's a red flag that you may not be able to afford my services. And that's no disrespect, but no one wants to be chasing someone for money that they've earned. As attorneys, our job is to advocate. And so there's not necessarily a tangible item that you see, but we do a lot of work behind the scenes. So leading with your facts, leading with who you are and what your goals are, and being very transparent with that, that will help you, because there are attorneys who will just be honest and say, I don't think it's a good fit, or they will, there's also attorneys who will just take your money and run. That's unfortunate, but it's true. So do your research.
Thank you very much. Now, guys, again, this is all great advice. Please listen to it as you go out and decide which attorney you're going to retain and ultimately choose. Now, the reason I brought this question up again is you may get a bit of guidance this evening with regard to whatever your legal issue is, but you may ultimately want to seek out an attorney to represent you in whatever the issue actually is. And I want you all to know the types of questions and things you should be thinking about when you do that. I don't want you to go in blind. So you've been given some great information on how you might go about doing that, how you might build on some of the information that you get this evening. So with that, we've kind of done our thing for a little while. We've given you some background. You know what we do. You know what we are. Please go ahead. I believe you can digitally raise your hand. Go ahead and start asking your questions, and we'll do our best to fill them at this point. All right, we've got one question. All right. Can she speak?
I think
go ahead. All right.
Hello. So I guess this question is for Attorney Hill or Washington. What recommendation would you give to someone, I guess, that has gone through multiple attorneys? I guess I don't want to say child custody case, but kind of within that realm, they've gone through multiple attorneys and they don't quite see the light at the end of the tunnel. Like they don't see any of their rights really, like things aren't just going their way.
So I would say first do some self-reflection on what it is that these attorneys, what's not working. Is it that they're all telling you something you don't want to hear, or is it they're telling you, or they're not giving you the attention that you need? There are private attorneys and assigned attorneys. They are all excellent in their own right, but again, they might not be a fit. And don't be afraid. I don't know if they're retained or assigned clients. or attorneys that you have, but don't be afraid to ask for a change or to challenge them reasonably, but trust these individuals as legal experts. It's not uncommon for me to get calls from people who have questions, just wanting to consult and possibly change attorneys because they're not sure if their attorney is saying what the right thing is, or they're not sure that they're being heard. So I think having a very candid conversation with your attorney about how you want to be heard, how you want to be represented is something that's very important. And I also serve on the assigned counsel panel. Some people, I guess going back to the question before about how do you pick an attorney, just because someone's free doesn't mean they're bad. I've had people tell me that, they want to pay for a lawyer because it's better. That doesn't mean anything. I mean, I say, okay, if you want to pay me full price, as opposed to having the state pay for me, that's fine. But so keep that in mind too. But I would say, if you can't get your attorney's attention, then set a meeting with them, and then have a very real conversation about where it's going, how you're feeling, because that will hopefully flush out some of the confusion. A lot of it's a miscommunication because at least the law is pretty fast paced, especially with the pandemic and everything. It's important to have that time set aside to express yourself with your attorney.
Attorney Hill, I would just want to ask a question on one thing you mentioned, which was assigned counsel. Some of the group may not be familiar with that. Can you just give us a little detail on what that is?
Sure. I am on it. I believe the Arthur's on the assigned counsel panel as well. There's a family law and there's a criminal law panel. If you make under a certain amount of money, then you qualify for a free lawyer, basically a public defender. In family court, it's called assigned counsel. In criminal court, they're called public defenders or assigned counsel as well. I think right now with COVID, they may have suspended the financial requirements. I could be wrong, but certainly don't be offended and don't underestimate your opponent if they have an assigned attorney, because there are some excellent assigned attorneys out there.
Thank you very much.
Go
ahead.
Me comment. All the top criminal defense attorneys are on the assigned counsel. So basically, you're going to get, if you qualify for assigned counsel in a criminal matter, you're going to get you get attorneys that have their own private practice. That if you had the money to hire them, you would be paying $5,000 to $10,000 easy to retain them going forward for trials, so on and so forth. But because you qualify for assigned counsel, now you're getting the top echelon lawyer. So, I like to tell my assigned clients, because they call me and they be like, you're a public defender. I'm like, no, I have my own practice. If you want to hire me for this again, like Ms. Hill said, you're going to have to pay me some odd dollars, to retain me. But, you're basically kind of lucky that, you're getting all, experienced attorney with his own private practice for free. So, so I'll tell them, I said, no, I'm not a public defender. I'm an assigned counsel. But again, you're getting an experienced attorney for free.
Thank you very much. Chris,
yeah,
you want to hop in?
Yeah, if you're burning through attorneys, like that to me says that there's a misalignment between sort of expectations, in reality. Not to say that your expectations are wrong, but maybe they're just not aligned with the way that things are going. So I think it's it's important to have, and that comes back to when you're selecting an attorney, is have a frank conversation at the outset, because the law works in very particular ways. Sometimes it moves really fast, sometimes it moves really slow, and you need an attorney who's going to be open and honest with you about, and also an experienced attorney who's seen this before, who can explain to you, these are the kind of things to expect, so that, so that you're not sitting there kind of biting your nails, terrified over, what could happen, or you're not sort of making, a bunch of, outlandish things or things like, things like that. So I think it's important to kind of have that conversation and that mutual understanding, and then just kind of look internally and say, all right, that'll help you assess, is this me, is this them, what is this, what's not working, if you're burning through a lot of attorneys.
Absolutely. I want to say this, and I think I speak for all the attorneys on the panel, and just attorneys in general. When you call individuals and you're securing your attorney, there's going to be an instinct from you to tell your side of the story. And it's not that you don't have a side of the story to tell. It's very legit. But what your attorney needs is the whole story with as little bias as possible, as little of your perspective and more of a global perspective. Here's why. Your attorney wants to be able to highlight the particulars of the facts that work well for you. But your attorney is in a better position to defend you. And I don't just mean on the criminal side. I mean in the civil side too. There's debate back and forth. Your attorney's in a better position to represent you, should I say, if and when they can anticipate the arguments that are going to be coming from the other side. If they're blindsided by information that they didn't have up front, that makes it very difficult for them to represent you as adequately as they possibly can. So when you're talking with an attorney, please give them all of the facts. Don't try and hold particulars back. Try and be the least biased that you possibly can when you're sharing that story or those facts, because we need all the information to represent you as best we can. We're not going to judge you. We're there to represent you, particularly if you've retained us. So with that, we're going to move on to another question. If someone in the audience wants to raise their hand or has a question. Oh, we've got some things coming in the chat. All right, I'm going to read this. Can you guys hear me? Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, okay, I'm going to read this out and then we're going to get into it. All right. I recently volunteered my time for a nonprofit legal organization here in Western New York that was looking for a Spanish-speaking attorney to assist a client to fill out a will. The individual needs a will and doesn't have much assets, but wanted to divide what he had left to her children, bank account, et cetera, et cetera. Some guidance on what I should consider asking to put in a will, and are there any templates out there? Should I consider utilizing platforms to allow you to file a will online? Okay, so I am going to fill that question, and actually I know who that question is coming from. The wills are more kind of my area of expertise, and we're going to be doing that in the very near future. I'm going to answer your question beforehand, but I'm going to answer it offline because I want to make sure that the people who are interested in these other subjects get theirs answered, and I'm happy to answer your question. And again, I know who you are. So I'm going to follow up with you. Maria, can we let her?
Hi. Each of the attorneys have talked about there being looking for the right fit, you know, when you're interviewing counsel. And I'm just wondering if, in your opinion, there are 2 to 3 critical things that you think are important to determining a fit.
So just to make sure I understand, you're looking for 2 to 3 things that are important when you're selecting an attorney. Is that what you're asking?
Mm-hmm. It just if they're, I mean, I understand fit but I was just wondering, particularly, you know, is there something different for if you're, hopefully I would never need a criminal attorney, but if one does need a criminal attorney, you know, are there particular things that's specific maybe for criminal law versus if you want Miss Washington's, you know, assistance, things that I know she said don't ask about money up front, but I would think that in assessing, determining if the lawyer is a right fit for you, there's probably some overlay or key things that, in your opinion, either everybody can answer or just one of you could answer.
Does anybody want to hop in? Marissa?
So yeah, when I say don't ask about money, when I say that, I mean, don't start the conversation by saying, how much is this going to cost? How much, you know, what is free? What is not free? That you should be asking about pricing, but it's just how you approach it. If you ask about, it's how you finesse your questions. You certainly want to give information. You want to find out about pricing, asking someone what's their hourly rate. How does the retainer process work? Retainer, just so everyone is aware, that's a contract that you sign with an attorney that spells out your attorney-client relationship. It says what their hourly rate is, what's expected of you as a client, what's expected as the attorney in terms of communication and relaying things to you. But if you call me and you leave me a message saying, hi, I'm calling for a free consultation. I'm wondering about payment plans. I've got this really complex matter going on. It's just kind of a red flag for me. I call everyone back, so don't think that's but in some way in your conversation, you need to finesse and nuance in about payment. You talk about, this is what I'm looking for. This is my issue. What is your hourly rate? How long can it take? That's a trick question, at least with family court. It depends. That's the favorite answer of attorneys. It all depends on your case. But again, that comes with transparency. In terms of what to look for, I think realistic expectations, finding an attorney who's not going to tell you what you want to hear, but will tell you the law and how things are going to go, things that may or may not go in your favor. There's never any such thing as a case that's 100% in anyone's favor, especially in my area of law, at least. Everyone's going to compromise. There's no winner in a family law situation or a matrimonial situation.
Does anyone else want to hop in on that?
Yeah, I'll add. You know, your attorney is going to be the person, right? They're your face in front of the judge. So you kind of need to make an assessment of that attorney, right? You know, do you want a scorched earth attorney, right? Do you want someone who's going to be a bull in a china shop? Do you want someone who's going to be relentless on the other side, right? Or do you want someone who's a little more mild mannered, who can be a little more flexible, can ramp it up when they need to, or can de-escalate things when they need to? Or do you want someone who's on the other side, who's just a little more calm, quiet, and reserved, right? Like, who's the person that you want to represent you? And, you know, what kind of, case do you have, and what are you sort of, comfortable with that sort of outward manifestation of you in front of the court, and such. And the second I would say is just, right, are they listening? Right? Are they really listening to you? Are they hearing you? Little things like, do they, remember your name? If you told them something, you have to tell them something, 3 or 4 times. So something that they should remember, right? I mean, if someone listens to you, I mean, that means they're taking in, they're internalizing, what it is that you're saying, and they're really thinking about it. And I think that it's more likely that they're going to give your case, more thoughtful attention.
Okay. And I would say that, I mean, as a criminal defense attorney, I mean, this is very sensitive that, I mean, you're basically putting your freedom in my hands. So one thing, I mean, a couple of things I would say you would ask, or what's their knowledge of, of the crime that you've been charged with. What's their experience in handling prior cases like that. And ultimately, you have to build up a trust. You have to trust this person because you're trusting this person with your freedom. And that's huge. You go into court, and the judge or what have you has the ability to lock you up and take your freedom away from you. And you really have to have someone advocating, your defense attorney, as a criminal defense attorney, someone advocating for you that's going to let you know what's going on, and that there's going to be no surprises, and that you trust. If he tells you something that's going to happen in court, you have to be able to trust them. You don't want to go to court and get locked up and you be like, oh, my attorney didn't tell me this was going to happen. So you have to be able to trust that person, that all your questions beforehand, before you go to court, before you retain that attorney, that he can answer your questions, and that you're comfortable with his answers to your questions, and he can lay out everything that you're looking at, all the possibility, your options, so on and so forth, so that you're comfortable with hiring that attorney.
Thank you very much, guys. I am going to field the question from the chat room. So the scenario is this. Chris, you probably will want to jump on this one, but the general idea is someone was working for a company and they had a particular work product during that. They had a design that they came up with. Now, if I understand correctly, they have since left the company, and the company is using that work product without their permission or notification. And so they're curious as to how they should move forward with that.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, and that's kind of a loaded question. I guess the first thing I would do is just take a look at anything you've signed. You know, a lot of times in an employment handbook or an assignment of rights, you know, in that onboarding packet or the other documents that they have you sign. A lot of times in there's an assignment of intellectual property, right? So anything that you create during the employment relationship, the company owns. And it's not always the case, but you know, you have to kind of know what you signed. So I'd want to get my hands on those. And I want to review those. Second, you know, I would talk with an attorney about kind of what the thing is, because what the thing is determines kind of what rights you may have in it, right? Is it something that might be subject to a copyright or a trademark or a patent, or the different ways, the different things that the law protects them in different ways. So you kind of have to know what it is. You know, assuming that it was yours, you had ownership rights, and that the company is using it improperly. Usually, it starts with a cease and desist letter. You know, a demand that, hey, you are you know, you're using this product in violation of my intellectual property rights. You know, I demand, you know, that you cease and desist, or I'll take all you know, action available under the law and seek damages and all of that good stuff. You could always send it, but it tends to get more attention coming from an attorney. They tend to take a look at it and pay it more attention, and then you know, then you're more likely to get a response or a call, and just kind of get something to kind of gauge you know, what their position might be on it. That'll also kind of let you know what kind of fight you're in for. A lot of times, you know, if it's something that's not super critical, you know, a company will just say, hey, if it's not worth the fight, I'll stop doing it. But you kind of have to show them that you're serious first. And if that letter that cease and desist comes from an attorney, you're much more likely to have you know, a better result early on, versus, you know, someone just kind of throwing the letter in the pile and moving on. So those are my thoughts.
Thank you very much. I am going to move on. Brother Campbell, who is a fraternity brother of mine, has a question, it looks like. So I'm going to have him do that. I'm going to ask, right before we get into that, a quick ask of two of my panelists. The nature of my job, and I believe Mr. Hayes' job, is limited with regard to us kind of taking on private clients. But Attorney Duncan and Attorney Hill Washington can, and they're available to you. So if any of you are interested or have particular questions and you'd like to explore it more deeply with an actual potential attorney-client relationship, I'm going to ask that those two place their information in the chat box for people to reach out to them if they'd like to. And then you guys can go ahead and follow up with them. Again, highly experienced and very capable attorneys. So I do encourage you all to seek their expertise if you do need it. With that, Brother Campbell, if you would.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay.
Good evening.
Okay. Thanks for putting this on. I greatly enjoy it, a great deal. Unfortunately, we're all going to have to deal with attorneys at some particular point. I know there's a lot of attorney jokes out there. I won't make any. But I want to get back to this whole trust issue, because it seems to me that is one of the things I think that causes a lot of people to hesitate in terms of going to an attorney oftentimes, you know, because we hear so many bad things, if you will, from all over the place. So when you say do your due diligence, are there really any specific websites one can go to find out about a rating of a attorney, or if an attorney has had any legal action against them that would cause us to, you know, would cause a red flag? And if God forbid, if I do get a bad attorney, is there any regress that I have as a ordinary citizen?
So I imagine that everyone on the panel is going to want to field this question in some way, shape, or form, but I'll give my 2 cents as we get into the group. So you can always Google an individual, no matter what business they're in, and you might find that they're going to their names are going to pop up, and they'll be associated with certain instances. Now, newspapers, other outlets may have their own biases, so I wouldn't necessarily say that what you find is indicative of who that attorney is, but it may give you some hints. If you keep seeing the same thing over and over again, you might want to be cautious. Also, in general, I go back to word of mouth. I hear about more attorneys just out and about. And I tend, people tend to be candid when they're talking. Hey, this guy didn't show up for court when I was, when we had a court appointment. This attorney never gives me a call back. You definitely want to ask around. It's almost like you create your own network of information. And if it is a bad attorney, you probably won't get too far before someone says, "Oh, I dealt with them," and I wasn't too pleased. But panel, if you would, any thoughts on how to really go about doing your due diligence with regard to attorneys?
I think Google is a good place to start, generally speaking. People have written reviews on my page and other firms' pages, and usually they're good, but people who are most eager to write reviews are the people who are disgruntled. So I would keep that in mind. It's all about perspective. For every unhappy client, I'm sure there's 3 that are happy for any attorney. Again, it goes back to a good fit. If you need a recommendation or to look up an attorney, the New York State Bar Association or the New York Courts.gov, I believe you can look up an attorney and see. But again, I wouldn't use that as an indicator. Everyone has a history of sorts that doesn't necessarily reflect their integrity as an attorney if they've had other issues and things like that. So word of mouth really is the best way to go about it, I would say, because some of the attorneys, and again, what your best friend's perfect attorney is not necessarily your perfect attorney. So it's all relative. It's all about perspective.
I think there's the fourth department grievance committee. So if you're having an issue with an attorney, that's where you would go to basically file a complaint and have it heard. And I'm not entirely sure, but I do think that some of those things can be public record. So you might be able to see what is out there on any attorney that you might consider using. As some of the panelists have said, I wouldn't take it as gospel, because some grievances against attorneys are completely unfounded. But you can still you might be able to identify some trends, and things like that. One thing I always recommend doing is, if you know any attorneys, reach out to an attorney and kind of get, an idea of, look, this is generally the kind of thing that I'm looking for. This is my issue. Do you have any recommendations? Because I've been practicing for a while, and I don't pretend to know everything about the law. But 9 times out of 10, I can get you in touch with someone who does know about the issue, and also who I think would be kind of a good personality fit, and kind of the good right sizing for something, right? Like if it's the type of issue that I don't think you need the super high end, super expensive. I think at this level we'll get it done. So I think that's a good way to kind of to vet your attorneys also.
If you have an issue with your attorney, you can also go to the Erie County Bar Association or the Nairn County Bar Association, whatever your respective counties are. And I know they have dispute resolution and things like that. A lot of retainers or contracts that you sign with attorneys will require that you go to that before you take any formal action against an attorney. So you may want to start there as well.
Okay, thank you very much.
Absolutely. I'll just chime in too, and just some thoughts that come to mind. I remember kind of, growing up before I was an attorney, thinking of attorneys as kind of these, revered, very intelligent individuals, and many are. What I will say to you, again, being very candid, is every attorney that manages to pass the bar in practice does not mean that they're operating on a level, in my personal opinion, that's consistent with what you want. Now, I do think of it more as a floor above which I expect an attorney to operate, and not a ceiling which every attorney has to get to. And what I mean by that is every attorney is not going to go argue in front of the United States Supreme Court. That's not going to happen. Some of us don't train for it. Some of us don't have an interest in it. But that might be a highly regarded attorney who has the ability to do that. The fact that you've never done that does not mean you're not a very capable attorney. In the same respect, again, the fact that you've passed the bar alone does not make you a capable attorney. What it makes you is capable of passing a fairly complex test that you can take repeatedly until you pass it. So just be careful that someone who has that ESQ behind their name, or does go, or is a licensed attorney in the state, just because they have that does not necessarily mean that they are operating at least that floor level. Because you do have some attorneys that unfortunately don't seem to conduct themselves or operate at that level. So that's just my input on that. Again, questions? Anybody curious about anything out there?
Yes. Philip had his hand up. Joe, you see Philip got his hand up. We got to unmute him.
I can't see it, but if somebody could unmute him, by all means.
Hello, can you hear me?
Hello?
How y'all doing? How everybody doing?
Good. How are you?
All right. I just wanted to go back to the retainer situation.
Okay.
I understand about not asking money up front, and that's fine. My question is, what if you just wanted to retain an attorney even though you don't have anything going on? Like if you just want a retainer just in case anything, so happens to transpire, or is there any attorneys out here that's like well-rounded in, all different types of areas of the law? Like where you could get one that's just well-rounded, where you don't have to, well, I got to put this attorney on retainer, that attorney on retainer, and that attorney on retainer. You get what I'm saying?
So I'm going to chime in, and again, I suspect that this is a question that most of the panel is probably going to want to chime in on as well. But to answer your first question, absolutely, you can have an attorney on retainer to address issues as they come up with. That's a contract and a relationship you can work out with the attorney. Now, to your second question, can you have an attorney that can field everything? I'm going to caution you from my perspective to be careful with how you go about doing that. Now, there are some very fine general practitioners out there who have some experience here and have some experience there. I'm not going to tell you otherwise. But what I will tell you is that old adage, jack of all trades, master of none, often is applicable. So what you'll get is someone who dabbles, but dabbling is not always how you want to represent yourself in court, because sometimes, given the complexity of law, it's the nuances that make a difference. It's that attorney that really understands that there's this one clause somewhere that people often don't think about that may make the difference between a judge ruling in your favor and not. And oftentimes, a general practitioner does not have that knowledge that's going to be able to call on that particular statute or nuance. So that's my thought on that. But panel, please.
Yeah, kind of to piggyback off of what Joe was saying. I mean, as a licensed attorney, I mean, I can practice in any legal field that comes around, but of course I don't. I have many friends in the legal communities that I refer legal issues to, property or what have you. Anybody I'm like, well, I don't know about that. I need to call so and so, or I'll refer you to this person. If it's a business law matter, I'll refer you to that person. So no, I wouldn't. It's as far as you trying to get somebody, and Phil, I know Phil well. Trying to get somebody that's to kind of handle everything. It's a matter of you know what I mean, you vetting that person and seeing what they know and what may come about that, you know what I mean, you may have a legal issue. So if you're thinking about opening up a business or you're thinking about doing this, that, and the third, then you have to ask that attorney about those certain issues. And if you have maybe about 2 or 3 type of like legal issues that may come about and you feel comfortable with that attorney that he has some knowledge in those 3 fields and it's kind of limited, then so be it. But if you get something broad, it's like 5 or 6 different issues. It may be something in surrogates court. It may be something in family court. It may be criminal, this and that. And you're trying to get the same person to do all that. I mean, I wouldn't advise that at all. That I don't think that would be a good idea. And also, the first question, yeah, as far as the retainer, you know, a lot of people, when I tell them about a retainer, that you know what I mean, that retainer goes into an IOTA account. And basically that money is not touched until it's earned. And how I, you know, how I do my IOTA account, if you give me a retainer, say for some odd dollar, it goes into my IOTA account and is not touched until I do the work. And then I will bill you monthly as I do the work. We'll work out agreement of how much I charge per hour. And then as I do the work, I will bill you monthly, and then that money comes out the IOTA account. But that's when you in a retainer, that's still your money until I earn it.
Mm-hmm. Just, I want the other panelists, if they wanted to chime in, just clarification. An IOTA account is a special account that the state has us keep. We keep your money separate in a special account. We don't commingle it with ours. So when Attorney Duncan refers to an IOTA account, that's what it's referring to. Attorney Hill or Attorney Hayes, did you guys have anything to add?
So with respect to retaining an attorney, at least for a family court matter or a matrimonial matter, that's not something that typically I do or a lot of my colleagues. We do what are called minimum fee retainers. So the money, so say you want to hire us for a custody matter and we charge you $3,500. Most of our retainers say that is our money as soon as you pay it to us, and then we'll conclude your matter. We do the billing statements and things. Some attorneys return the money that's unused. Other people don't. Technically, they don't have to. I personally do because that's just my personal philosophy. But so in that light, I don't usually keep, and most family court practitioners do not usually have people on retainer just for general purposes. I will say that if you call and consult with an attorney, they are supposed to take your name and contact information, and they put you in a conflict checker so that your ex or whoever is going against you could not then go ahead and retain me or my services. So you will find cases where people know, oh, this person's really good, that person's really good, so I'm going to call everyone so that my ex cannot or my opponent cannot hire them. But it doesn't always work that great to do it that way. And your other question, I'm sorry, if you could refresh my recollection. Oh, about a general attorney. As a matrimonial and family law, so I'm in divorce court, we'll call it, and then I'm in family court. Those are very niche areas. There's only a few judges. I know my judges very well. I know this judge may be a little more pro-dad, that judge may be a little very much by the book. If you get a general practitioner who's not from that specialty or that niche area, they are at a disadvantage. They don't know the judges. They might not know that little stipulation or clause in the law that really gets you that edge ahead. And quite honestly, you want to have someone who's well versed in your area of law, especially for family court, because it is such a tender subject. Your family, that's something that you can never really, no one dreams of going to family court. So you want to make sure that you have the best representation for you in that situation. There are a lot of family law attorneys who overlap with criminal. I know Thearthur is one, he's excellent. A lot of times the law intersects, but beyond that, you'll never catch me in a criminal court unless I'm like having a friend who needs a parking violation removed. Criminals beyond me, but everyone's different. And that's just, I would recommend finding someone. And if you find someone that you really vibe with, ask them, hey, I have this other issue. Who would you recommend? Can you handle it or can someone else? and then your attorney, hopefully you have a rapport with them where they're honest and say, you know what, I'm not too great with, wills or this or that, or adoptions or those sorts of things. I mean, those are things, it just depends on the person, but that's my recommendation.
I think the best bet for, kind of finding something like that is, right, there's law firms, right? There's big law firms that have hundreds of attorneys that can handle a variety of issues and all that good stuff. But I mean, the rate that they charge is very, very high. I mean, you're talking about, several hundred, $300, $400, $500 per hour, right? So at a certain point, that's just cost prohibitive. Normally it would be a business that would put, something like that, a law firm on retainer, because they're just going to have so many issues that they always need to be able to pick up the phone and call someone. I think it makes sense to put someone on retainer if, like it was kind of said, like if you're, looking at, doing a, kind of a specific issue, or like at least in my world come up, like someone's opening a business, right? There's a variety of things that are going to come up in that sort of in that lane, that you're going to want to be able to call, pick up the phone and talk to someone without explaining, what it is that your business does every time, right? You don't want to have to reinvent the wheel, because there's costs involved with that, and it's an efficiency, right? You want someone who knows your issue, knows your business. I think, that's the kind of attorney that you want to put, on retainer for those issues that are going to be, kind of popping up.
2 points I want to hit on that were mentioned. Attorney Hill mentioned one, and then I just want to give an example. Judge relationships, all right? If you get a summons or something to go to court and you know who the judge is and you're thinking about hiring someone, it would be an excellent idea if, among the other questions that we discussed tonight, to ask that attorney, do you know Judge such and such? And have you appeared in front of him or her before? And if so, how many times? Relationships matter. There's a lot of gray areas in law where people are given the benefit of the doubt, the attorney's given the benefit of the doubt, and the judge may extend certain courtesies to a particular party because they're represented by an attorney. Now, you'd like to think that the judges are extending things equally, and I'm sure the intent of all the judges is to do so. However, there may be certain biases. Oftentimes, you'll have attorneys representing or appearing in front of judges, and they went to the same high school in Buffalo 50 years ago. They've known each other longer than some of us have been alive. So to think that there's no sort of some level of favoritism that may be shown as a result of relationships is to be naive, in my opinion. With regard to the distinction between a general practitioner and someone who specializes, I want to give the example of a handyman versus a plumber. Now, you might call a handyman over if you've got a clogged sink or something like that, and they might be able to handle that, or you need a washer put in or something like that. If you need an entire new sink, you're going to call a plumber. If you call a handyman, you're going to be in some trouble, all right? So understand the complexity, or try and get a gauge of the complexity of the question or the issues that you're dealing with, and that may determine ultimately whether a general practitioner is appropriate, or maybe someone who specializes is appropriate. Again, if you can't distinguish, I'd always err on the side of going with the specialist, because the specialist has an area of expertise in that area, and they're probably not going to lead you wrong. So I know that we are short on time. If it's okay, I'm going to field one more question, assuming someone has one, and then we're going to wrap it up for the evening. If anyone does have to go, just a couple of things. There's going to be another panel, February 11th, next month. That's 6:30 p.m., same time as this one started. We're going to be covering some different subjects that night. Real estate. So if you guys are moving any sort of real estate and have some questions there, we've got someone coming. Wills and trusts. I can answer some of those questions. We have someone who's been doing that longer than I have, and will be able to give another layer of experience, particularly in the trust area, than I have. So come back for that. And then discrimination law, which I think is going to be particularly interesting. If any of you are having some issues potentially in your workplace and you want to explore questions on, am I being treated fairly? If you think that you might be being treated unfairly for various reasons, that might be an area that some of you really want to dig into, and you might get some general guidance. So with that, we've got something in here in the chat, I see. We got a question on, do you work with psychologists, and what credentials and experience are you looking for? Is that fielded? Is that it? I imagine maybe Attorney Hill, maybe
In
the
family,
author too, though.
in
Go ahead.
family court, we do use psychologists, psychiatrists, licensed social workers. We do custodial evaluations. We will do mental health evaluations. Usually for the mental health evaluations, we send people to Horizon or Best Self or an agency like that that's more accessible to the general public. We do have requirements in some cases where people have to engage a counselor and remain compliant until they're discharged based on substance abuse or mental health evaluations and things like that. So it really depends. But I mean, if someone is interested in that field, I would say definitely reach out to the courts and the established like evaluators. Psychologists do the evaluations for custody. That is a great way to quite honestly make some money and to really make a difference in some people's lives, because those evaluations are not inexpensive and you really can help a family get some clarity into what their situation is.
Okay. Attorney Duncan, do you guys deal with psychologists much over, I know sometimes on the criminal side?
Well, in regards to when there's a challenge of the competency, the mental competency of the defendant, I mean, we will order normally a forensic evaluation. And that's normally, I mean, through the courts. The court will provide somebody, a psychologist to evaluate the defendant going forward to see if they're competent to stand trial. And besides that, going forward, if there's a trial scenario, then, of course, if we think that we need a psychologist or someone to testify in regards to what happened, the mental competency of the defendant. So maybe we might have a situation where the forensic doctor from the courts said that my client was competent to stand trial, and we don't agree with his evaluation. So going forward, if we had a trial scenario, of course we would hire our own doctor to get on the stand and testify on behalf of my client in the trial scenario.
Okay. All right. I said that was going to be the last question, but I think this question may actually pique the interest of everyone on the panel as well, and I think it's worth us answering it from a community standpoint. Someone is asking if they want to become an attorney, what is the best way to go about that, and perhaps what are some things you want to think about? And so I guess I'll start, and I'll try and be brief. Being an attorney can be very rewarding. It's very intellectually stimulating. It can be financially lucrative. If you're the kind of person that likes to debate often, if you like to dig into facts, if you like to get into books and nuances and things of this nature, if you don't mind putting in some hard work, if you think that there's some issues going on in courts that you see, and you think, hey, that person isn't being treated fairly, I'm willing to put forth the time and effort to defend that person. If you're passionate about family, or you're passionate about criminal law, or you're passionate about some of these things, what really triggered me, I had friends who had gone to law school, and we'd have debates about some constitutional issues, right? Freedom of speech issues sometimes, or Fourth Amendment issues, and people being locked up improperly, in my opinion. So those triggered my thinking that, hey, maybe I can be an attorney. Now, I will say this. Oftentimes I would doubt. I say, hey, these guys are really smart. They've taken this difficult test. They spent all these years in school. I'm not sure I can do that. Don't doubt yourself. We are normal people who were persistent enough to get through. But I guarantee you, each one of us had our own struggle. It was not easy to do this, but it was worthwhile doing it. And if you have persistence and you can keep pushing through, you will get there. So that's my input on the subject.
I think about why you want to be an attorney and the type of attorney that what you want to be. Because everyone thinks, just don't get caught up with the Law and Order or Suits or all of those other like TV shows, because I'll tell you, you can put a camera on me for about 10 hours a day in terms of like my work day, and you might get like, I don't know, 2 viewers on cable. Right? It's not it's not what it looks like on TV. Now that being said, look, I'll tell you about some. I could tell you about some of my cases and all that sort of thing. It's really interesting to me. But my wife or like my friends are like, why are you even like talking to me about this? So, I'd say just have realistic expectations. If you're a person that likes to read and write and argue and really pay attention to details and really kind of, build cases up from nothing or from something, or or you look for a good challenge, or you want to be out in front of people to kind of have an ability to change people's lives, or maybe even change the world, right? I mean, when you sometimes you go to court and the judge issues a decision, sometimes that decision can become case law, and that case law might live 100 years after you, and I think that's kind of cool. So there's really some really cool aspects of it, but I would just say don't get caught up with the glamour that's TV, because that's not what being an attorney is all about.
I would say, as probably the most recent graduate from law school on the panel, I graduated in December of 2014, and I was admitted to the bar in the following February or June, something around there. I took the bar in February. Keep an open mind. That's something that's very important. There are so many fields of law, and the world as we know it is evolving. There are areas that you don't even know exist that are quite interesting. I know something new to the scene is surrogacy law, and those sorts of things in the form of family law that was interesting to me. Finding a good mentor is something that is immeasurable. I was someone who did go to law school out of town. It would have been probably more helpful to go to law school in town, but you never know where you're going to end up. So it's not impossible. I think I've immersed myself in the community fairly well. And I would say, don't be afraid to ask to shadow attorneys. Most attorneys, we love to talk, and that means we like to talk about what we do. So if you want to find someone, or you look someone up and say, hey, can I just come and have an informational interview? Can I shadow you and be an informal intern? Judges too, they love it. So that's something to keep in mind just as a general practice. And then if you do go to law school and if you do proceed out, I would say find a group of friends or colleagues that you can really bounce ideas off of. There is a group of young female attorneys that I text with probably every day, and we just bounce case ideas and law off one another. We talk about our frustrations. In family law, there's a lot of those. But it's good to get a good diverse group of people together talking and having those conversations. So you really have to find your mentorship and find a group of people, but don't be afraid to ask for help, because especially in Erie County and Niagara County, we're both right practice, everyone's very collegial. It's not like what you see on TV, people cutthroat and hurting each other. That's just not how it is here. I can't speak to other locations, but that's not how it is here.
I would say that, depending on where you're starting from, it's out of high school, it's 7 years of education. So, of course, you have to get your bachelor's, which is a 4-year process. Then going to law school was another 3 years. Then taking a bar, studying for that. So you're looking at 8 years if you're just talking strictly coming out of high school, this would have started from a high school diploma. And that's a long time. So, and you have to prepare yourself to do the work for that 7 to 8 years and whatever is needed to be done. So all the sacrifices you're going to have to make, depending on your family life, and things you're going to have to do to be able to go to law school and pass the bar, so on and so forth. You got to look at all the takeaways. I'm not trying to discourage anybody. There's going to be student debt. There's going to be, applying to get into law school, applying, taking a bar. There's more debt, taking the law school prep courses. There's a lot of work, but if you're going to do it, just off steam ahead, full steam ahead. And as you go along in the process, there's individuals as myself, one of them, and whoever wants to do it, I always will help. I'm a non-traditional law student. I graduated from law school at the age of 42. So, I did it with a wife and kids and, a suspect background. People know my story. So it can be done, but you just got to do the work. And basically, surround yourself with people that can help you along. Anything that gets in your way, like my friends say, we always circumvent the process. You can't go straight through it, you go around it. And it could be done. But again, you got to do the work and you got to know what you're getting yourself into. And also, like Chris was saying, even once you get across the board and get licensed, it ain't all pretty. It's not. It's, it's a lot of work, and depending on type of law you're getting into, it could be very stressful. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of attorneys that, have, develop, substance abuse problem, alcohol abuse problem because of their workload, worrying about their clients, taking their work home with them. As a criminal defense attorney, I have a lot on me because I have people's freedom, and I don't want to make a mistake and they go to jail because of something I didn't do. And so, that's a lot on your back. You know what I'm saying? And like Ms. Hill, she's dealing with people's families every day. And these are touchy subjects. And Chris, I know Chris before he was with Key Bank, and I don't know he did Key Bank where I know, and that civil litigation, dealing with millions of dollars every day. People don't smile when they lose their money. So, so it's a lot, once you become an attorney, it's a lot. It's not our glamour, it's not the TV stuff. It's none of that. And the trials are few and between, and they're high stakes also. And so, and you look at it, you look at it on TV, and like I said, it looks pretty and all that stuff. And most of the stuff on TV, you can't really do in trial. They just do that for, for the TV stuff. Most of the stuff that you can't do in trial and stuff they say, can't be said in the actual trial. So it's not all pretty, but again, if someone wants to go to law school, do it. Just know what you're getting yourself into. Don't half step, and more power to you.
Thank you very much. All right, I'm going to close out with that. With regard to being an attorney, I'm going to say what all my frat brothers would recognize when I say it. We got some here, but we need some more. So if that is you, if you're interested, if you have that drive, if you think this would be something for you, I encourage you to reach out to some attorneys, even some of us. If you don't have other attorneys to reach out for, chop it up with us, talk to us. We'll give you, our experiences, what we think of it. But we do need to be represented as attorneys in the community. Young people need to see us. Our peers and our elders need to be represented by us. We understand their experiences. We understand their perspectives, some of the cultural sensitivities that might come into play, and we need to be present so that they can be adequately represented. So with that, I want to do a couple things as we wrap up right now. Panelists, wonderful job. Thank you so much. Attorney D. Arthur Duncan, Attorney Chris Hayes, Attorney Marissa Hill Washington. Thank you very much for giving the community your time, giving me your time tonight. Wonderful job. Again, please reach out if you should need the services, particularly of Attorney Duncan or Attorney Hill Washington. They have provided their information in the chat. They are available to you. Final disclaimer, anything that was said tonight was a generalization. We did not provide any specific legal advice. There were no legal contracts made between anyone who was speaking and yourselves. So please understand that as you take the information that we've shared with you tonight and you move forward, you do need to reach out to an attorney if that's what you need, and have some specific discussions with them. Again, this was series number 1. Be cognizant of the fact that February 11th at 6:30 p.m., we're going to be doing another panel and covering some other subjects: real estate, discrimination law, and wills and trust. So please come back if you have any interest in those subjects or you want to get some general questions answered. I want to send a shout out to Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, Rho Lambda chapter, both for sponsoring this event and for taking care of the technical aspect of it. Please, everybody, no matter what else you do, please be safe. Please take care. Please take COVID very seriously. And I hope to see you soon. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good evening.
06.
You know what, brother? Oh, 6! You haven't been able to say that in a bit. I'm gonna return your call.
I have no idea who's still in the chat. I have to grab some things from the chat. What's going on, Kiara? Shout out to AKs. I know y'all got your Founders Day tomorrow, so happy early Founders Day.
That's it.
I can't hear what you're saying, but
we can't hear.
You look happy.
We haven't granted her privileges. we can't do you like that. It's almost your time.
Hey guys, thank you. Thank you for inviting me, Joel, and
absolutely
the frat out there.
Look at that
I was on another AKA call, so I had a little outfit change real quick.
Thank you for joining us.
Yes. Your family over here said, hey, my mom was at work. My dad was going to go get her. My brother was on a call, but they told me to tell you, hey.
Tell everybody I said hello.
I will. Say hi to my Rosie for me too.
I definitely will. Y'all be safe.